Oak City's wealthy circle shared a common secret. The beloved Miss Carter was devoted to her husband, yet she enjoyed seeking thrills outside their marriage. There was only one rule: she couldn't let it reach her husband's ears. Everyone knew her husband was the man she had loved for 10 years, the man she had nearly given half her life to marry. She had declared that if he died, she would never live alone. But this time, the man was disobedient, relying on her affection to cause a scene in front of me. He sent me a series of photos of condoms, accompanied by the woman's peaceful sleeping face. "Mr. James, the ribbed strawberry ones are too exciting. Miss Carter was screaming all night. Has she ever used them with you?" In that moment, I realized that the girl who filled my heart and eyes had given me her love, but her sexuality to another. I looked at those photos, cried until I had no tears left, then drafted the divorce papers and signed them. As I turned, 19-year-old Emily Carter stood behind me, looking at me with tears in her eyes. "Ethan, that wasn't me. Don't leave me." 01 Just a door away, Emily Carter's familiar voice reached my ears. She spoke fluent Spanish with a serious tone. "The fact that I'm pregnant with Oliver's child must be kept a secret. Ethan can't know." The private booth fell silent for a moment, followed by a chorus of cheers. You're amazing. Which position is easiest to conceive?" "Chair." "Don't worry, we all know your husband is your life. We'll keep it a secret from him." Emily Carter thought I couldn't understand Spanish, so she always spoke Spanish when discussing her outside boyfriends. I couldn't understand it before, but now I can. I released the doorknob and looked up at the teary-eyed, incredulous young woman. What did she say? I tried to keep my voice calm, but the slight tremor in my tone betrayed the turmoil within. The young woman looked conflicted. I added, "Don't lie to me." She bit her lip, trembling. ND finally squeezed out a few words. She said she's pregnant with Oliver's child. Although I had long known about Emily Carter's infidelity, hearing that she was pregnant with Oliver Miller's child still stung. I lowered my eyes and smiled bitterly. "Now you know why I want to leave." I met the young woman's eyes and called her name, Emily Carter. The young woman burst into tears. In the dim light, her face was identical to the 29-year-old Emily Carter inside the room. The only difference was that the 29-year-old Emily Carter had learned to keep her lovers hidden. The 19-year-old Emily Carter had only me in her heart and eyes. The young woman's voice was filled with sobs, sounding lost and helpless. She asked me, "Ethan, why?" A day ago, she had suddenly appeared behind me. When she saw the divorce papers in my hand, she also asked me why. But then, she didn't understand why I had chosen to leave her. Now, she didn't understand why she, who had promised to be good to me for a lifetime, would do something to hurt me 10 years later. She choked up, unable to speak. I touched her head, my fingers passing through her illusory form. "There are not so many whys. I won't forget what I promised. From now on, I'll give Emily Carter 3 chances. And after those 3 chances, I would keep my promise and leave Emily Carter forever, so she couldn't find me anywhere." 02 Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the door to the private booth. Emily Carter was the first to greet me. She leaned gently on my shoulder, the powerful businesswoman showing me her spoiled side. "Honey, you're finally here. I've been waiting for you for so long." "Ethan, if you hadn't come, Em would have turned into a statue waiting for her husband." "Quick, Ethan, Em peeled these shrimp for you herself. She knows you love them and didn't leave us any." Emily Carter's friends chimed in, showing me how much she loved me. Love does need to be expressed, but it never needs others to prove it. That's what the 19-year-old Emily Carter taught me, but the 29-year-old had forgotten. I smiled self-deprecatingly, following the gaze that was fixed on me, and saw Oliver Miller in the crowd. He had a well-behaved face, but his body was surprisingly good, indeed having the capital to attract Emily Carter. Meeting my gaze, Oliver deliberately glanced at Emily Carter's stomach, then stood up. He raised a glass of wine, his eyes filled with unconcealed provocation. "So this is Ethan. Nice to meet you. Hope you'll give me some face." Oliver emphasized the word first. After all, he didn't know how many videos and photos of him and Emily Carter being intimate he had sent me on text messages. Those images had once pierced my heart like needles. The only difference was that now, he and Emily Carter were wearing clothes. Seeing the wine being offered, Emily Carter's face changed drastically. She stood in front of me, her tone cold and hard. "My husband doesn't like to drink." Emily Carter's blatant protection didn't provoke Oliver's dissatisfaction. Instead, he smiled even more brightly. "What's with the tension?" she said in Spanish, her eyes sweeping over me. In the past, a princess having lovers was something the prince consort was expected to know about. "Surely Mr. James won't mind if I toast him?" "Yeah, Emily Carter's friends echoed. "To have the best of both worlds. You're enjoying it. Anyway, your husband can't understand. Just make up a reason and let him take a sip." I couldn't understand what they were saying, but I could feel the mockery in their eyes when they looked at me. Emily Carter instinctively wanted to refuse again, but under the expectant gazes of the crowd, her inner vanity made her hesitate. A trace of struggle flashed in her eyes, then she looked at me and tentatively opened her mouth. "Honey, how about?" I interrupted her. "Do you want me to drink it?" The 19-year-old girl looked anxious. "And you're allergic to alcohol, you can't drink it." But Emily Carter hesitated and nodded. I smiled and raised my glass in the direction of the young woman. "First time." The liquid flowed down my throat, with a slight bitterness that stung me to the point of tears. The anxiety in the young woman's eyes instantly turned to heartache, and then to deep guilt. Emily Carter didn't understand the meaning of first time. She hugged me gently. "Honey, I promise you, this is the first time you've had alcohol, and it will be the last." I lowered my eyes. The 19-year-old Emily Carter knew I was allergic to alcohol. So even at the wedding banquet, she took on all the celebratory wine toasts herself. Now, the current Emily Carter has someone else and has long forgotten about it. "Emily Carter, you have 2 more chances." 03 Because of the alcohol, my face quickly became covered in red rashes, and I felt dizzy. Emily Carter finally remembered my allergy. She panicked, her eyes filled with guilt. "Honey, I'll take you to the hospital." Her concern used to make me feel warm. But now, it made me feel nauseous from the bottom of my heart. I shook off her hand, my tone as calm as it was cold. "No need. I'll just go home and take some medicine. You guys have fun." "No, you're my husband. How can I let you go home alone?" Emily Carter's tone became urgent. She stood up straight away, quickly putting my jacket over my shoulders. "Let's go to the hospital. I won't be at ease otherwise." With that, she ignored the surprised looks from the others playing in the private booth, as well as the displeased look on Oliver Miller's face in the corner. She held my arm tightly, half supporting and half dragging me out of the private booth. When we got to the hospital, Emily Carter bustled around, registering, finding a doctor, and getting medicine. Her footsteps were hurried, and she kept muttering, "Honey, just bear with it, it'll be all right soon." It wasn't until she heard the doctor say that it was nothing serious that her anxious face improved. On the hospital bed, she took my hand, her eyes sincere. "Honey, it's all my fault. If something happened to you because of this glass of wine, I would never forgive myself." I looked at her, my heart filled with mixed feelings. I never doubted Emily Carter's sincerity towards me. Her kindness to me, her heartache for me, was indeed because she loved me. But her love was too cheap. Someone else could get it with a wave of their hand. I looked away. The 19-year-old girl beside me had red eyes. She opened her mouth, but didn't say anything. I suddenly felt so tired. The physical discomfort and the mental exhaustion made me want to sleep well. I said to Emily Carter, "I want to rest." Emily Carter carefully tucked me in and wiped the cold sweat from my forehead. She looked at me gently. "Sleep, I'll watch over you." I nodded and ignored her. Just as I was dozing off, Emily Carter's phone rang. I felt her gaze, which had been resting on me, suddenly pause, then hesitate. She took the phone and tiptoed out to answer the call. I opened my eyes and stared at the ceiling for a long time, but Emily Carter didn't come back. The 19-year-old girl came back. She lowered her head, afraid to look at me. Did Oliver call her away? The girl didn't speak, just bit her lip, her hands clenched unconsciously. I smiled self-deprecatingly. Where did she go? The girl was silent for a long time before she managed to say a few words. Parking lot. I pulled the Ford drip out of my hand and got out of bed. The girl stopped me, her tone anxious. Ethan, maybe she just has something else to do. Don't go, please don't go. In the end, it was almost a plea. But I looked at her, her reddened eyes revealing a hint of stubbornness. She looked at me too, and finally slowly gave way. Emily Carter's car was easy to find. After all, there were very few cars having sex in the car in the hospital parking lot so late. She must have been in a hurry. The back door wasn't even closed properly. Torn stockings hung by the car, and the man's low, heavy moans came from inside. The woman's panting but familiar voice could be heard clearly in the empty parking lot. Those intimate, revealing words were like sharp blades, piercing straight into my heart and the young woman's heart. The young woman's handsome face suppressed pain. She looked at me, her voice trembling slightly. Ethan, cry if you want to. I shook my head. I'm not crying. I looked away, although my heart was stinging, and there was no expression on my face. Emily Carter, this is the second time. I stood quietly on the spot, not remembering how long I had stood there. She raised her head with a satisfied smile and met my eyes. Emily Carter's face suddenly turned pale. Honey, what are you doing here? 04 I didn't answer Emily Carter's question, just looked at Oliver Miller behind her. He was sweating, and there was a small wet patch on his slender dress pants. My silence made Emily Carter even more flustered. She hurried forward, wanting to grab my hand with one hand, but I took a step back to avoid her. Honey, listen to my explanation. It's not what you think. No need to say anything. I interrupted her, looking at her calmly. I don't want to listen. Emily Carter's hand froze in midair, her lips moved, wanting to say something, but Oliver Miller walked up to me. His eyes were red, looking wronged. Ethan, and I couldn't help ourselves. It's all my fault. If you want to blame someone, blame me. Oliver suddenly grabbed my hand and punched himself hard in the stomach. He fell to the ground, looking at me in shock. Ethan, I just wanted to apologize to you. Why? Why did you push me? He clutched his stomach, letting out a few painful moans. I'm in so much pain. My stomach hurts so much. Emily Carter's eyes were filled with worry. She couldn't care about me, turned around, and went to help Oliver Mill. Oliver, how are you? Hold on, I'll take you to the hospital. Oliver Miller grabbed her sleeve. Don't worry about me. Ethan must be angry. You go and persuade him. Hearing this, Emily Carter looked at me with a complicated expression. Honey, I didn't hit him. My tone was calm. But Oliver is very naive. Emily Carter didn't finish her sentence, but the unfinished words were like a heavy hammer, hitting my heart hard. She was saying that Oliver Miller was very naive and wouldn't use such a trick to frame someone. I smiled and moved away from the elevator. Are you going to leave because of him now? Emily Carter's face was full of pain. Honey, I swear to you, my feelings for you have never changed. Her voice was full of determination, seeming to want me to believe her sincerity. But Oliver is uncomfortable now. I can't leave him alone. Wait for me to take him to the hospital and settle him down. I'll come back and explain to you right away. Please believe me this time. I wanted to refuse, but the 19-year-old girl was already crying. She squatted on the ground, her body trembling slightly, like an abandoned little animal, helpless and pitiful. She muttered to herself again and again, Ethan, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What did she have to be sorry to me for? The 19-year-old Emily Carter had only me in her heart, had never betrayed this relationship, and she still only loved me. But the 19-year-old Emily Carter and the 29-year-old Emily Carter, could they say they weren't the same person? I didn't know. I lowered my eyes and said okay under Emily Carter's scorching gaze. Emily Carter's face suddenly lit up with joy. She stepped forward and hugged me. Wait for me. With that, she helped Oliver Miller leave, completely disappearing from my sight. When dawn was breaking, Emily Carter hadn't returned. She took the initiative to ask me to trust her this time, but she also broke her promise. I silently went through the disc. Hard procedures. Then I took a cab to the place where I and the 19-year-old Emily Carter had buried the time capsule 10 years ago. It was a sycamore tree. 10 years ago, it was just a sycamore sapling. Now, 10 years had passed, and the sycamore had grown tall and leafy. I picked up the small shovel I had brought and slowly and firmly dug out the time capsule buried in the ground. I opened the letter written by the 19-year-old Emily Carter. Hello, 29-year-old Emily Carter. I am the 19-year-old Emily Carter. You and Ethan must be living a very happy life now, right? I always wonder what kind of life I should give Ethan. Is it a rich and carefree life, or a plain and stable one? But after thinking about it, his happiness is the most important thing. The 29-year-old me never made Ethan sad, never made him heartbroken. Don't let him down, don't lie to him. By the end of the reading, the young woman was already sobbing. She told me with tears, Ethan, don't be sad, don't be unhappy. Leave me, never look back. At this point, she and I both understood. The 3 chances that the 19-year-old Emily Carter had asked for had all been used up. I wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes, and for the first time, I touched her. It was like crossing the torrent of time and touching 10 years. Don't cry, I said softly. Then, I took off the sapphire ring on my ring finger. This was given to me by Emily Carter when she proposed. She said at the time that the sapphire symbolized eternal commitment and unwavering love. She also said that the only love in her life was Ethan James. I put the ring in the envelope, as well as the divorce papers I had prepared earlier, into the time capsule. Then I looked at the 19-year-old girl under the sycamore tree, whose figure was becoming more and more blurred. She was crying, but smiling at me. She said, Ethan, don't forgive her. As her figure gradually dissipated, the memories of the past 10 years seemed to turn into bubbles. The sun rose, and everything was gone. I took out my phone and sent a message to Emily Carter. Emily Carter, we're over. The next second, the originally quiet phone suddenly rang urgently. 05 in the hallway of the hospital filled with the smell of disinfectant. Several particularly clear sighs could be heard from time to time. The low color temperature of the overhead lights made the entire lobby feel somewhat distant, but it did not affect the human tragedies being played out here one after another. Emily Carter sent Oliver Miller to the emergency room, and the doctor gave him a meticulous and thorough examination. Don't worry, there's nothing wrong with Mr. Miller's body. He just needs to rest well. Oliver Miller seemed dissatisfied with the doctor's conclusion. If he were healthy, how could he continue to win Emily Carter's sympathy? But my stomach hurts. Doctor, did you miss any tests? Did you check his stomach? Did he hit his stomach? Oliver Miller sat in a chair, his voice trembling slightly, but he kept glancing at the anxious Emily Carter beside him. Unfortunately, this anxiety was not for Oliver Miller. Our separation was so embarrassing. Emily Carter's disgraceful state was seen by me. How could she leave calmly? She was very anxious now. She was trying to figure out my thoughts and speculating on my emotions. Would I completely break up with her because of this incident? Emily Carter was suffering from moral torment because she could not find a solution. Oliver Miller watched Emily Carter pace back and forth outside the emergency room several times, frowning and staring at the sky, whose color was constantly fading. The world was about to usher in another dawn, and Emily Carter didn't want this to be the last one for us. Oliver, I really can't stay with you today. I'll come to see you when I have time. Oliver Miller grabbed Emily Carter's sleeve. I know I'm just a temporary pastime for you. With Ethan around, I can only live in the shadows forever. Oliver Miller suddenly paused for a moment, his expression even more aggrieved and helpless. But you're pregnant with my child after all. Can you bear to leave the child's father alone in the hospital? Looking at Oliver Miller's pitiful appearance, Emily Carter was a little moved. Oliver Miller naturally took advantage of the situation and pursued her. I admit that I can't compare to Ethan in terms of loving you. Maybe I'm a little greedy, but I just hope that you and the child can stay by my side. Ethan will understand. Emily Carter ultimately chose Oliver Miller in the struggle. In her eyes, I was so tolerant and generous that I didn't care even if my dignity was repeatedly exploited. She thought that she could hide everything from me and that I was completely unaware of everything she did outside. If she hadn't accidentally been exposed today, she might still think that I was being kept in the dark and that she could still flirt around without any scruples. The two of them could always reach an agreement through clumsy excuses, and Oliver Miller's few words convinced Emily Carter to stay with him all night. Patients and doctors in the emergency room were constantly coming and going, and even the longest night was worn away by these emergencies. As dawn was breaking, Oliver Miller finally gave up and stopped pestering Emily Carter. But at this moment, my message was also sent to her at the same time. Emily Carter, we're over. This message had been in our conversation box for a long time, but I had been reluctant to send it for the sake of the 19-year-old Emily Carter. Now that she had used up all 3 chances without cherishing them, it was time for me to fulfill my promise. 06 Emily Carter felt a little dazed after seeing the message, but no matter how many times she refreshed it, the farewell text message was still embedded in the conversation box. No way. Emily Carter dialed my phone number. The familiar ringtone rang in her ears again and again, but the only response was the cold, mechanical voice, implying that there was no longer any possibility between me and me. The harsh noise was unbearable, so I finally chose to turn off my phone to find a moment of peace. However, from Emily Carter's perspective, this was my most resolute statement. She finally couldn't deceive herself. I loved her so irrationally that I could tolerate all her despicable behavior. If my love was really like that, then what would be the difference between it and her cheap feelings? Emily Carter felt a palpitation in her heart. She should know the principle that a gentleman's word is as good as a horse's. There will be no good ending for breaking an oath. Although Emily Carter had been busy in the hospital all night, she still drove home without hesitation. Driving fast on the asphalt road, the scenery in front of Emily Carter became more and more distorted. The cold air pouring in from the car window went straight into her lungs. The bursts of pain made her face painful, but Emily Carter couldn't remember to roll up the car window at all, let alone slow down. Even though Emily Carter rushed home as fast as she could, all that greeted her was endless silence when she pushed open the door. Emily Carter's mind was constantly wandering. She always felt that the current situation of our separation was caused by fate. Perhaps if she had returned a minute earlier, we would have had a chance to meet. But for a betrayer, being one step late might be the inevitability given by fate. Emily Carter, who was at a loss for a moment, quickly thought, where else could I go besides home? Tears fell from the corners of Emily Carter's eyes. Our former shadows kept flashing back in her mind, and finally stopped in a lush shade. In the quiet forest, a slender and lovely sycamore sapling was hidden among a group of lush trees. That was where we buried the time capsule 10 years ago. We agreed to go together 10 years later to verify this once extremely beautiful expectation. Now, this lush and secluded forest has become the last clue to find me. As for the wishes buried under the tree, they were just a joke left behind when we were young and ignorant. Emily Carter drove to that sycamore tree, and her eyes seemed to reflect us 10 years ago. There was still a hint of shyness unique to teenage boys and girls on their young faces. At that time, agreeing to 10 years was a huge thing for us, and we never thought about what betrayal was. Now, betrayal is simply commonplace for Emily Carter, and it has even become a habit. 10 years is not short. If you are immersed in this filthy world without a constant and unchanging heart, it is easy to be corroded. Emily Carter is like this. She seemed to have found a life-saving straw and flew to the sycamore tree from before. The sycamore tree was still verdant. Compared to before, its roots did seem to hide more secrets. But when she came to the tree, the soil where the time capsule had been stored had already been turned over. The things buried under the tree were still quietly sleeping on the way. That was the purest and most innocent memory between us. Emily Carter dug up the soft soil, but what was left inside was no longer just that letter with its naive words. In addition to that, there were also a ring and divorce papers. She knew that I had sentenced this relationship to death. When she wrote that letter, the 19-year-old her had cherished such pure and ardent feelings. For the current her, that had become an unattainable luxury. Emily Carter burst into tears. All the evil deeds of betraying me occupied her memories. She could have turned back, and there was even more than one chance. But before it was too late, every seemingly seamless deception was refreshing the bottom line of her conscience. Because she knew that I would always choose to forgive her, the temptations wrapped in desire no longer seemed dangerous. Repeated attempts proved to her that this immoral pleasure did not seem to have a price, so she completely fell into the gentle embrace. But she never thought that she was changing, and neither was I. She became unscrupulous, and I became particularly sensitive. Now my departure is the result of her choices. But Emily Carter still didn't believe it, didn't believe that I would leave without saying goodbye, and still held a glimmer of hope that she, who was unforgivable, would still be forgiven by me. 07 To leave this place of right and wrong, I chose to settle in another country. Everything here is unfamiliar, and I need to get used to it again. I opened a dessert shop here, and I hope that the desserts will make me produce more dopamine, so that I will no longer think of my bitter life in the past when I wake up in the middle of the night. To cut off the past, I even changed my name. Mr. Owen, the usual, please pack a box of donuts for me. As the wind chimes at the door swayed, a familiar figure came into my eyes. She is a witty young woman who always wears a beautiful flower in her hair every time she comes, and almost always buys a box of donuts to take away. This seems to have become an indispensable part of her life. At first, she just paid and left. Later, when we became more familiar, she would occasionally talk to me about local customs or the weather, and over time, it turned into trivial matters in life. She told me her name was Crystal Summers, and her parents took the meaning of purity and cleanliness. I found it amusing and couldn't help but ask, "Then why aren't you named Summer Jade?" She playfully pretended to be serious and joked, "Because my elder sister beat me to it." Over time, I roughly guessed her intentions, but I came here precisely to soothe the emotional scars I had, so I wouldn't easily start a new romance. The painful price of love was something I didn't want to experience a second time. Never feels. She remained undeterred, taking care of my business come rain or shine. She also brought me some handmade gifts. She was very skilled, and the wood carvings she made were lifelike. She also said to me, "If a tree's end is inevitably decay, then before that, capture it in its most beautiful moment." If I occasionally closed the shop, she would look particularly worried when we met again. Perhaps we weren't suited to be partners, but I was still very grateful to have such a friend in another country. This kind of life lasted for half a year, and we always maintained a comfortable distance. I thought maybe one day, time would dilute my past, and that distance could become even closer, but that would be a very distant future. She came to the shop as usual and handed me an invitation, saying that there was a party today and she hoped I could come. I took the invitation, which specified the time and place, the restaurant where I and a few newly acquainted friends often gathered, of course. I gladly accepted, and she took another box of donuts when she left. When I went after work as agreed, I realized that Crystal Summers had prepared a grand confession ceremony for me. Perhaps this is a bit presumptuous, but Mr. James, would you? Before she could finish, a familiar and uncomfortable voice rang out from behind, "If you know it's presumptuous, then don't ask." It was Emily Carter, whom I had finally managed to get rid of. She barged into my peaceful life just like that. 08 Emily Carter barged in without explanation, grabbed Crystal Summers' arm, and punched her in the chest, causing her to stagger and fall into a chair. "Ethan is my husband, and you're trying to seduce him? Ethan?" She looked back and forth between Emily Carter and me with a puzzled expression. I stood in front of Emily Carter and raged, "Enough. You know best what you've done." Emily Carter looked ashamed and said softly, "I was wrong before, and today too. I'm very sorry for embarrassing you." What she said was true, but if she knew it all along, why did she have to come and stir up my sadness again? I thought fate had let me go, but I still fell into an inescapable vicious circle. I had traveled far across the ocean and started a new life, but all of this made me not want to open my eyes. "There's no need to apologize anymore. I will never forgive you," Emily Carter said anxiously. "Ethan, listen to me. I have nothing to do with Oliver Miller anymore. And I've already gotten rid of Oliver Miller's child. We have a chance to go back to the way we were before. Believe me, Oliver Miller will be the end of my past misdeeds, and there won't be any more in the future." To this day, I don't know whether to laugh at her stupidity or resent her viciousness. One Oliver Miller is enough to repackage her as a reformed good person. People always say that a prodigal son returning is more precious than gold, so how should those who have been loyal and honest all their lives deal with themselves? I will let someone like Emily Carter know that turning back now only leads to a dead end. My business with you has never had anything to do with Oliver Miller. Could it be that Oliver Miller has been betraying me and deceiving me all along? I'm glad that she let me see that your low character is disgusting. If you have even a shred of concern for me, you should leave me. The further away the better. Emily Carter looked at my resolute expression, pondered for a moment, and said, I understand, but Ethan, I will make you change your mind. Don't worry. But my heart was already dead to her, so how could I change my mind? I was still worried after Emily Carter left. Crystal Summers walked to my side. It's all my fault today, otherwise, it wouldn't have ended like this. I didn't dare to recall what had just happened. Crystal Summers and Emily Carter had never met before, but she was beaten for no reason. This guy with countless sins stood on the moral high ground and accused others. Although it was Emily Carter who did it, I felt extremely humiliated. I had no choice but to smile wryly. I made you laugh. I'm sorry. I want to be alone today. Crystal Summers heard this, put on her jacket, and left alone, comforting me before leaving. It will be okay. Contact me if you need anything. After watching Crystal Summers leave, I felt a little lost. I sat at the table, not knowing what to do, and not knowing what would happen after today. This was the worst day I had spent in another country. After that, Crystal Summers still came to my dessert shop every day, but in addition to her, there was also Emily Carter. Since it was an open shop, there was naturally no reason to refuse customers. Every time Emily Carter came, I tried my best to ignore her. But Emily Carter had no self-awareness and pestered me in every possible way, always saying that she would reform herself and asking for another chance. But the 3 chances I had agreed with her at the age of 19 had already been used up by her. Crystal Summers didn't say much when she met me at the pastry shop, but she always sent text messages privately, telling me to tell her in time if Emily Carter came to pester me again. Although our residences were not far apart, she never easily came to visit, but occasionally, when she had inspiration, she would send me some impromptu creations she had made with different materials. Looking at those artistic statues, I felt that my soul had also been cleansed, and in the barren and cracked heart, a drizzle of spring rain moistened the soil. I suddenly felt that this power to turn decay into something magical was incredible. 09 I felt uneasy and surprised at times in this kind of life. As long as Emily Carter was there, I would never be able to sleep peacefully. Life here suddenly became a little dull from the original peaceful and quiet state. Crystal Summers was indeed very good to me, but that was far from enough to make up for the hurt Emily Carter had once caused me. The same would be true for anyone else. I thought Emily Carter was the most brutal stumbling block in my life, but I didn't expect that after her, there would be Oliver Miller. Oliver Miller followed Emily Carter's text messages and found my current residence. In his eyes, if it weren't for me, his life wouldn't have plummeted. He would not rest in peace if he didn't take revenge. Oliver Miller investigated my whereabouts step by step and learned my life patterns. Finally, he found an opportunity and waited for the right moment to take action. When I came out of the pastry shop, Emily Carter was waiting for me with a bouquet, while Crystal Summers was looking at the ivy on the pastry shop windows, looking for inspiration and preventing Emily Carter from acting rashly. But what I never expected was that I had just walked out onto a brick road. I saw a swift black shadow rushing over. It was Oliver Miller driving at high speed. His face was ferocious, and anger was churning in his chest. He let out a sharp and piercing sound from his throat. Ethan James, if it weren't for you, how could I have ended up like this? Just die. Oliver Miller honked the horn frantically on the deserted road, like the grin of a demon in hell. He rushed towards me recklessly. Amidst the exclamations, I felt a burst of dizziness. It seemed that someone had stood in front of me, and my eyes were shrouded in darkness. When I woke up again, I learned that Crystal Summers and Emily Carter had risked their lives to stop Oliver Miller to save me. I looked at the doctor with an forward drip and a somewhat dazed expression. Mr. James, your body is not seriously injured. The other 3 people who were sent here with you. Only Miss Carter. According to the current situation, she can only spend the rest of her life in a wheelchair. My eyes were a little dull, and I didn't know what kind of emotion to feel about this news. Is that so? After resting in the hospital for a few days, my life returned to normal. When I was about to be discharged from the hospital, I went to visit Emily Carter. She was staring at the ceiling blankly on the hospital bed. Perhaps her mind had also been damaged, and she looked particularly depressed. She looked a little pitiful, but pitiful people must have hateful things about them. My voice was still a little weak. No matter what, you saved me this time. I am grateful for this. However, if you want to get back together, it's impossible. Emily Carter motioned to the nurse to help her sit up. Yes, the way I am now. How could you still be willing to turn back? I shook my head. It has nothing to do with this. Even if you were still healthy, my choice would be the same. What I hate is your turbid heart. Emily Carter lowered her head for a long time and slowly said, in the end, I'm the one who let you down. And I wish you happiness, too. Only after being discharged from the hospital did I learn that Oliver Miller, who had committed the hit and run, was arrested and treated, and then transferred to prison to serve his sentence for intentional injury. What's the point of making yourself end up in prison after traveling so far? Fortunately, the suffering and troubles that had been bothering me had finally come to an end, and I could finally set sail for my new life. 10 Crystal Summers, who learned that I had recovered, still came to see me every day, with a flower pinned on her head. She walked slowly into the shop, and the crisp sound of the wind chimes rang out. I turned around and saw her walking towards me with a smile on her face. Are you feeling better? Crystal Summers was more seriously injured than I, but she didn't seem to care at all. Thank you for your concern, I'm much better. Still a box of donuts today? She rubbed her hands. If possible, could you customize a confession cake for me? I was sure that Crystal Summers was so positive, and besides, we could be said to have gone through life and death together, so it was only natural that she wanted to take things a step further. I'm sorry, I'm too tired. I once gave almost all my efforts to a 19-year-old girl, and I thought our relationship was indestructible. But that girl was Emily Carter. Crystal Summers was stunned when she heard this. A 10-year agreement was betrayed in just an instant. I can wait, no matter how long I can wait. Even when we are old, we can sit and watch the sunset. I am a non-marriagist, and I didn't believe that a law could determine feelings. Later, I thought about it. For you, I would rather bear 10,000 constraints. Let's be friends first. We smiled at each other. Perhaps we both understood in our hearts that everything unknown could only be left to time. We were friends for 2 years, just like that. We talked about everything, and I made many cakes for her, but none of them were for confession. Several close young girls walked into the shop, chatting and carefully selecting desserts. You've seen her too, she's very beautiful. Of course I've seen her, it's the person in the wheelchair, sitting there all day. I don't know what she's waiting for. Maybe she's waiting for her lover, she's infatuated. I don't know if her lover will respond to her. The girls said one thing after another, seeming to regard Emily Carter as a beautiful story of expecting an encounter in a corner of this place, which touched them all. But I just smiled silently. Yes, I would have thought so too at their age. I didn't tell the truth, so let this beautiful bubble last a little longer. The sky gradually darkened, and I went home. Recalling the expressions of the girls in the shop today, they were energetic, lively, and lovely, and I couldn't help but smile knowingly. Naive and immature feelings are touching. With this kind of mood, I slowly fell asleep, and I was able to relive this kind of fantasy love in my dream. Indeed, in tonight's dream, a lively and lovely girl walked over from under the shade of the trees. Ethan, it's me. I'm at 19. The 19-year-old Emily Carter walked up to me with light steps and smiled. Ethan, are you happy now? I gently hugged her, and my eyes couldn't help but turn red. Thank you, I'm very happy. This will probably be one of the most peaceful and comfortable nights in my dreamland. The end.